Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise today in support of my amendment to H.R. 1500 and in support of the Consumers First Act. I also want to thank Chairwoman Waters for her leadership and her stewardship in this endeavor. I'm proud to co-sponsor this bill, which will return the Consumer Bureau to its intended role as a nonpartisan consumer watchdog that protects the interests of American taxpayers, not those of special interest. In 2017, the Urban Institute found that 71 million Americans had a debt in collection on their credit report. Meanwhile, collectors estimate they contact consumers more than 1 billion times a year. 1 billion. During the 2008 financial crisis, people lost homes, jobs, and hard-earned wealth. The crisis was the prime example of what can happen when nobody's looking out for the consumers who are left to navigate a financial system built to confuse, mystify, and to capitalize on the most vulnerable. In response, Democrats created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency with the sole mission of protecting consumers and holding lenders accountable when they put profits over people. In my home state of Massachusetts, 46% of those living in communities of color have debt in collections compared to only 18% of residents in predominantly white areas. We know that debt collectors engage in some of the most aggressive tactics, harassing, berating, and even falsely threatening legal action against vulnerable consumers. My amendment would require the Director of the Consumer Bureau to issue quarterly reports to Congress, including an analysis of complaints submitted by consumers. The Consumer Bureau's complaint database has been a crucial tool to monitor harmful industry trends and agency enforcement efforts in defense of consumers. Since the beginning of this administration, more than 62,000 consumers submitted complaints on harmful and unfair debt collection practices. The Consumer Bureau, under Director Mulvaney and now Director Craniger's failed leadership, the agency has returned zero relief to harmed consumers. My amendment will require the director to report on the various enforcement actions taken against these debt collectors, because we cannot afford to go back to the days in which consumers were left to fend for themselves in a financial industry that was stacked against them. Information is power. The more information we have, the more power we have to protect consumers from harassment. Recently, the Consumer Bureau released a proposed debt collection rule filled with carve-outs and loopholes that would allow debt collectors to more aggressively target and harass consumers through emails and text messages. My amendment would prohibit the director from issuing further rules that would essentially open the floodgates and allow collectors to bombard consumers. I urge my colleagues to stand with consumers and to support my amendment. Thank you, and I reserve the remainder of my time.
Woman reserves.